out of that failure is where I found real estate. And I found another way to be able to help people, because that's all I wanted to do my whole life. Like, a lot of people get into this thing for different reasons. But the reason why I get into real estate is I literally want to help people. That's why I'm not building $3 million mansions.
Join me, Priscilla Facey, and Sherrod McQueen, two successful real estate developers with over 30 years of combined experience. Every episode will inspire, educate, and empower you on your quest to have a thriving lifestyle, which all begins with your mindset and your approach to life.
Welcome back to episode number 4 of the Real Estate of Mine. It's the realest real estate show on air.
All things real estate, development,
yes,
mindset,
finance.
Yes.
Keep digging in your bag of tricks. What else? I didn't know where you were gonna end. Finance,
credit. We didn't talk about credit.
No,
we have
honestly,
not talked about credit.
We didn't talk about credit because we're gonna need like 8 episodes.
It's gonna be a 9-parter. Yeah.
It's gonna be
a trilogy.
A trilogy. It's gonna be. I don't know what happens after trilogy. What's 4 parts? If 3 is a trilogy of 4, it's gonna be like Star Wars.
Cuatro.
Yeah, Star Wars. They have like a prequel. They had
prequel.
They had 9. They had 9 parts in Star Wars. It's literally 9. It was like, it was A New Hope, and it just kept going on, and then it went back, and then they start making cartoons. That's what we need for credit, because people really don't understand when they say cash is king. It's really credit is king. If you don't have credit, what do you really have? Guess we should introduce ourselves. But when my grandfather signed for my student loan, he was like, he was signing, and he was like, "Your name is worth more than silver and gold." I know it's old school, but it meant everything to me, because he was like, "This is your name," and that's what credit is.
Yeah.
With cash, you don't need a good name because you have money right there.
Yeah.
But when you have a name, it's worth more than cash because people can rely on you. Yeah. But with that being said, I'm Sherrod McQueen, CEO of M5V Developments, the realist a development firm, and I am with my co-host, or I'm her co-host.
I'm the main event.
Yes.
Priscilla Facey, founder, CEO of Build Up Development Co.
And the main event.
And the main
event.
The only thing that matters.
The only thing that matters. I'm happy to be in your presence, in your essence, in your glow. We have a lot to unpack here today, but one thing we're talking about today is the fear of failure. So we need to really get into the mentality. And this 4th episode, it's like, why do people not want to pivot? Why do they not want to try something else? And one of the main reasons is the fear of failure. What does that mean to you? How have you seen it impact people in their lives?
Fear of failure. Okay. I mean, I've got, a whole roster of clients and would-be investors, and dare I say would-be millionaires who had never really got started because they are just so afraid that what if, these people who incessantly need in their mind to know every step before they take it. And where we go back to, you have to be comfortable with some level of uncertainty. I mean, you wake up in the morning, I don't know, you don't know what car is going to drive on the street. You don't know which way the wind's going to blow. You get up every day and you still do your thing, right? And so you've just got to take that to another level. And the fear is very real. And what's also equally shocking to me is that people don't realize that the real fear should be in just kind of staying where you are.
Oh man. And people, I tell people there's mistakes by omission or commission. And people just feel like if they don't make any decision, then they're safe.
Yeah.
But no decision is a decision.
It's a decision. Yeah. You're choosing to stay where you are. You're choosing not to take that step, whether it's to invest, whether it's to anything, fix your credit, like anything at all. And I think people just don't really understand. Like I saw something yesterday you could buy on like Etsy.com or something, and it was like just a series of dots, and it said your life in weeks.
Oh,
and
I've seen that.
Week,
way too scary.
I
can't even look at that thing.
No, but it's just like if people could understand where they're going to be in 5 or 10 years, if they go this way or that way, I think that would really encourage people to do something. There was some video where it's like, oh, here's where you're going to be in 30 years, or here's where you're going to be at the end of your life, and it plays all these memories of like actually nothing though, because you didn't do anything. And that for me, and for someone who's got like major FOMO, that is the real risk, and that is the scariest part of just doing nothing, and just everything you have is everything it's going to be, and stagnant.
Well, listen, that fear of failure and that stagnation obviously is something that we're talking about. Well, we want to give them some practical solutions, like how to beat this fear of failure. For me, I always go back to history and where we came from. We talked about the episodes before, how important history is. And I don't think people really understand what history means. It's not like a bunch of old dudes who used to wear this or used to drive that or used to have their hair in a punk rock style. It's about the fundamentals of who you are. So the one way I say to conquer fear of failure is to go back to some times in your past when you were actually successful, to go back to some things in your time before when you failed, and how did you deal with those situations and what were the outcomes. So you might have to go all the way back to childhood. You might have to go and ask your parents or your aunts and uncles, who was I fundamentally? Because you know what? Fear is a learned response. You're not afraid. The thing about it is, as parents, you know, as all of us, whether it's parents directly or it's your aunt or uncle, we're all parents in this community. We're all teaching people who are younger than us as mentorship, and you teach them fear. Don't jump from here. Don't do that. Don't, because in the beginning we are fearless.
Absolutely, and you see it. You think of any child anywhere, and there's some parent yelling at them, "Oh, you're gonna fall down and hurt yourself," which actually plants the seed that makes it more likely to fall down and hurt yourself. But yeah, it's definitely a learned behavior. And I've seen it where, you know, my daughter just like, she goes up to animals and she's completely fearless. And it's like, to some levels, you know, there are levels because you have to hate. Don't go pet that dog. We don't know. You know?
Don't put your hand in the dog's mouth. However, you give her some autonomy.
Oh yeah, I give the most autonomy. Yeah, no, it's a fear of failure. And so when you're saying you got to go back, I'm just trying to think of a time where I failed hard. I need a moment.
You see, this is the thing why you're so successful, because what you've done is you've compartmentalized it. You've had times when you failed a lot. You don't get here without failing a lot.
I failed tests, but
you can't even remember failing, because it's only a failure if you stop there. Or if not, it's just another step on the way to the journey. So I was watching basketball. You know, it's one of my muses that I watch because I love the competition. And the Milwaukee Bucks, they're the #1 seed. They lost to #8 seed. Someone asked the gentleman, Giannis, you know what, do you feel like this season was a failure because you didn't win the championship?
That went viral.
And he said, well, no, it's not a failure. And it's actually a quote from Kobe Bryant. It's only a failure if you stop. But this is just another on the way to the journey. So what about all those other seasons? What about the seasons that I had in high school when I didn't win, when I won, when things, right? They all added up to the culmination when we won a title a year or two ago. So were all those seasons failures? So that's, to me, the way I look at life. So I'm not even really worried about failing. I'm like, hey, that's not a failure. That's an opportunity for a lesson. So I look at times when things didn't go right, but what happened on the basis of that? Like this didn't go right, but after that, this happened because that happened. And you know, how did that impact me?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm thinking hard. I think there were a couple of real estate deals that I didn't close. There's one client in particular, she can't call her a client. We're not going to name her, but I never closed her. I still think about her today.
You're still thinking about that?
I know. Here and there, when I see her pop up on Instagram, oh my God.
I know. You know what? That person who showed her name, I was with her at the Raptors game.
And you were working hard trying to even for me.
No, but here's the best part. She was looking at I don't want to give too much detail, but she was looking at a condo at Bisha. It was Bisha, I think. And it was like the 50th floor.
And she wrote the check.
And I was like, hey, I'm not, Priscilla, I like you. You're a nice person. I want to support you on this deal, but I do not want to go in the elevator up to 50.
Oh, that's
like,
right.
you remember that?
Yeah.
And I literally went up to the elevator on 49. I took a moment and then I came up to 50 and then I was negotiating this deal on the floor. Like, people who know me know I just don't want to be up that high, right? And I was like, the elevator and this, but to make the deal happen, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But you didn't close that deal and you're still, and you're lamenting it. So that was a failure. That deal didn't close.
Yeah, it did. But what that taught me a lot was, you know what, you can't spend time. You got to pre-qualify buyers, and you can't spend too much. You can't spend time on people that are just, you need to know when to pull the plug. And I didn't want to let it go. And then ultimately, the deal,
It went anyway.
The deal didn't happen. I spent a bunch of time on it.
So like I said, whether it's omission or commission, the decision is going to be made for you, because at the end of the day, she made the decision for you because she didn't buy. So it's like you could have pulled the plug, maintained control, and done it when you probably should have done it. You told yourself probably 10, 11 times, you know what, I should stop doing this. But you continued down the path, and then at the end of the day, she didn't buy. So now you spent more time, energy, and money, and now it's on your top list of failures.
It's definitely that was but you know what, it was a fail, but I learned so much from that experience, and then I started applying the knowledge, because applying it is really key to other clients and to my approach overall in dealing with buyers. So was it really a fail? It's probably why it took me so long to think about it.
Yeah, because again, it's all about perspective. So I have some failures, and you know, mine are more top of mind. I have quite a few, which is what makes me the person I am today. But you know, in 2001, it was September 11th. It was my first week of school in New York. So I lived in Brooklyn. 9/11 happened. I went to school. I was supposed to be in med school. And that was like the second week of school that 9/11 happened. Second week. I literally left that city. I got my car. I drove home, and I never came back. Okay, so I was in a post-bachelorette, so I had to do like 2 or 3 more courses to get into med school. So I was already accepted to NYU. They were like, okay, you got to finish organic chemistry and something else, because I had taken psychology as an undergrad. So I didn't have all my prerequisites, but I had straight A's. So they're like, yeah, you're good. You got to finish this. But I was so shaken to my core at that moment. And the city, New York City, I mean, we've been back recently, but it's so big. And going back was just such a full circle moment, because I couldn't even live in the city. I couldn't even stay in Manhattan. And we were talking to other people who were in Manhattan, and they didn't, all the people who worked there.
No, everyone who lives in Manhattan, everyone who works in Manhattan lives elsewhere. Yes. Queens, Brooklyn, wherever. Yeah.
And that was me. Yep. And that was me. And it was a full circle moment. But to me, I looked at it as a failure, because I was almost in med school. This was like a childhood dream.
Yeah.
This cataclysmic event happened, and now it kind of chased me out of town, and then I had to restart. Okay, where am I gonna go? And I had trouble with my I had a MCAT that I had to take, and I had some trouble with. But there's certain schools that are letting people in without an MCAT test, or with looking at some of the other factors, because again, I hadn't taken all of the necessary prerequisites, so it was a little bit more difficult for me than someone who's taken physics and organic chemistry, and they did everything they had to do the whole way. So to me, you know, in that moment, I felt like, okay, I failed. And I had to call my mom and tell her, hey, listen, I'm not. And that's always tough. And it's like, oh, okay, mom, I'm not going to be a doctor. I know that it's like week 2 at NYU, but it's not going to happen. But out of that failure is where I found real estate. And I found another way to be able to help people, because that's all I wanted to do my whole life. Like, a lot of people get into this thing for different reasons. But the reason why I get into real estate is I literally want to help people. That's why I'm not building $3 million mansions. I'm building properties that everybody can afford, they can get into. Because when I was a new immigrant, when we came here, we didn't have an opportunity to buy a house. We went to Mississauga, and we had to leave Mississauga to move to Brampton to be able to afford, because we couldn't afford Mississauga. So I understand what it means to have to move out of the area where you love, where you know, to go somewhere else to be able to buy a property. And now, you know, we're trying to complete the cycle and give other people an opportunity to buy and create value for their family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, even for me, like, sometimes I wonder, like, if this lane that I'm in now was a calling. I almost feel like I'm part way to something else, and I don't know what that is yet, and I'm completely okay with that. But I think for me, if you would have asked me like what I would have ended up doing, I mean, I think I would have probably said I would be a travel writer or something.
Well, that's what you wanted, yeah.
Just to travel, and I think to bring people into these places through writing. And when I look back now, it's like, well, why did I want to do that? Well, I wanted to inspire people and show people another path. And I think in a roundabout way, I'm actually doing the same thing. So, you know, that end goal is still, has been achieved, because I'm showing people another way, an alternative, that's going to inspire them. And then they can, you know, they can go on and they can, you know, as you said, each one teach one, and we can just kind of keep elevating and raising everybody up that way.
Have you read Loop Tale?
No.
So it's a book. I think that the guy's Canadian, and he started up a tour company for people who wanted to do like actually immersive tours in different parts. Like he has his tour in the Amazon, and he has a tour. So like you're literally going into the Amazon, and I just thought it was interesting because he tied in his love for travel.
Yeah.
But he made it like $100 million or $200 million business. So I'm like 40% of the way through, and I'm just reading the book, and I'm like, this would have been you. But you would have been that guy.
This is what people want. And I mean, it's like you travel, and for me, I don't want to be on a beach. I don't want to be in some manicured resort. I hate resorts. I'm okay to say I can't.
The resorts are the worst.
Food's
you don't get anything out of the resort at all.
You could take any resort and pluck it out and just.
And you have no clue where you're at.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a tourist trap in that sense. But people want to travel in order to experience, local life.
That's what you're going there for.
I want to do anyway. And so something like that would be very interesting because, you people want to live like a local, but it's funny because at the same point, like you don't want to live like a local. You want to have a start date and
you
end
want all
date
the creature
and
features.
go home to your comfort.
Yes. You want AC and you want a maid, but you want an authentic experience, right? So there's a little dichotomy there.
But yeah, so that is I'm gonna take note of that book. I'm gonna check it out.
No, check it out. So that's where you could have been, but now you're here with me. So and we love it, and we think it's it's everything. So that's my way of dealing with failure. Do you have any ways that you feel like this is a takeaway? How can someone put themselves in a position to win and switch their mentality? Yeah,
the only way to deal with the fear of failure is to do the thing and to move through the fear. Literally the only way. And that's why, I think back in the day on those shows, someone would be afraid of snakes and you have to bring a snake to them and show them nothing's going to happen.
What if they get bitten? What happens then?
Well, I guess they depoison the snake and they do whatever. Maybe the snake's got a thing on it. But they put them in a situation where you've got to be. So you're talking about exposure therapy, pretty much. Absolutely, no, 100%. And because you have to train your mind that you're there, you're in it, and nothing bad is happening. You're completely fine. And so the old saying, "There's nothing to fear but fear itself." And so when you're actually doing the thing, I mean, you got on a plane, and that was the only way to just move through it, and you prepared for it.
Yes.
And and then you did the thing, and now you are flying with help, but you're flying.
With help, but I'm down actually because I was taking 2 out of hand, and I'm down to 1.
Okay, there you go.
But it's everything because I'm halving my dosages, and I'm gonna do a half.
A half of one.
A half of one. I'm gonna go down to a quarter, and like it's everything. Mm-hmm. But yes, I had to move through it. I took a fear flying course. I did fly without it because before that, like he was put us on a private jet and we went around. It was like 12 of us and we all went on this course. And
sounds like an expensive course, private jet.
Oh man, it was an expensive course and everybody there was like some CEO. Like you went up to the private airport, but the whole thing was we worked through it. Yeah. So I like your idea. It's like working through the fear. Now, how does this apply to entrepreneurship, to making money, to financial literacy?
Yeah. So if you are afraid of, let's call it, quitting your 9-to-5 to start your side business, well, you do it in steps. And so, sure, don't just wake up tomorrow and quit because you want to, I don't know, pursue whatever, sewing. But you started in stages. And so you literally start pulling out your books. How much money do I need to make in order to live the life that I want? Or to at a base level, cover your expenses and have some money. So, okay, if that's, $10,000 a month, how many clients from this business you need? And you start breaking it out. And then you get to a point where you have to start the business. You've got to start the thing. And so a lot of people that I come across are actually making money on their side hustle, but they don't want to, pursue it full time. And I've got artist friends who are making good money. And when you actually start looking at the amount of money you're taking home from your 9-to-5, it's insane. At the net, I don't know. This income is not that difficult to replace. And the thing that people don't realize is the moment that you start actually taking that step and the moment that you get in and see, okay, I only need to replace $4,000 a month. Okay, so I only need to do whatever it is, sell 8 paintings or do makeup for, 20 clients. But now you have all this free time to start marketing and promoting your business because you were stuck behind a desk all day. And so you actually have to just start doing it. And I think people just don't realize that you're afraid of what are you actually afraid of missing out on 4,000. You're missing out on $20,000 by holding on to your $4,000 a month. Like it's
but that $4,000 a month is coming. And they and I know it's not really coming because you can get fired, things happen, you can get replaced. But to them, this $4,000 is coming, and this 20 grand is a question mark.
Yeah.
And people don't like the unknown. They don't like the uncertainty.
So for me, once you actually get your head around whether it's the marketing aspect of your business or whatever it is you have to do to generate more income and start doing it, I don't see how people are holding on to, oh, I want to still keep my 9 to 5, because now you're losing money. Like the amount of times I had a friend who was in the makeup business and we want to call her for a job, but she's working all day. She can't do it. So, okay, so you're holding on to this money, but start counting your losses. How much money have you lost out on? How much business have you lost out on because you're stuck here and you can't go over there? And this is like zero marketing. Imagine if you start putting a little bit of marketing behind it. And this is where people and business acumen is just so important. And a lot of people who need to understand, like, there are people making money and marketing anything. I mean, I'm guilty of tap. Stuff shows up at my house all the time.
Amazon's like my favorite thing.
Yeah, but just even marketing. Like sometimes I order clothes, it takes 6 weeks to come, and I forgot about it because
but they still come.
But the point is, it's like these algorithms and all of that. Like they can tap sell right into you. Anything. So why are we still here? Like it's that mindset around that, and it's something that you have to just start going through it. So start booking the clients. Start, I don't know, go down part-time at your day job. Like whatever it is you've got to do to show and prove to yourself that this is completely possible.
Well, what you talked about is another one of my ways to defeat fear, which is planning. Mm-hmm. I'm a planner. I need to know what's going to happen. And then once I know what's going to happen, then I can execute. Yeah. So I say, okay, I went to London and then I need to get to Paris. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this train. But the train goes under the water. Oh, wow. So if you know that's just like flying. You're in a tube, you can't get out. This is actually worse because you're underwater in a train. But you know what I did? I prepared. So I read all about, okay, how it was built. Mm-hmm. Has there been any incidences? I actually found out there's another tunnel beside that tunnel. It's an emergency tunnel. Like I didn't even know this, right? So through my preparation, it reduced my fear.
Yeah.
Through my level of understanding, my fear was reduced.
Yeah.
So I think education and proper planning is the key to reducing fear. Yeah. So if you want to be successful in entrepreneurship, in real estate, in financing, in investing, you need to research. That is going to help you eliminate your fear. And like Priscilla said, you need to plan an exit strategy. Don't just jump and then build a parachute later. Have everything planned out, get ready to go, set yourself up 90 days, 120 days, 1 year, whatever it is. Get everything set up, have a sound plan, educate yourself, and then the fear is going to dissipate. Yeah.
And I used to do that with a lot of real estate clients who they wanted to invest, but they were really nervous. And, a lot of them would sit on the sidelines for 1, 2, 3 years. And then they would see the house that or the property I was going to sell them for 300 grand is now 450. And like, hello, you've missed out on that money. And so we would sit down. Okay. So, and I had this meeting many times. Okay. So I'm finally ready now. What are we going to do? Okay. You've got X amount. Here's what's next. You're going to have the second deposit coming up on this date. But then we're going to do this. You're going to get your mortgage. Here's what that looks like. And you've got to almost just paint, like you said, planning. Paint a 2-3 year plan. And part of, I think, the success in selling investment real estate is to create a 5-year plan for people. And I still have the table in my laptop. It's just very simple, Microsoft Word. And I would just say year 1, year 2, year 3. And then you start planting in, okay, by year 4, we're buying a second property, year 5. And then people start seeing and visualizing something that you painted for them that they couldn't see for themselves. Because again, they've got their fears, but I'm outside of that and I'm showing you our plan here. And so that's where it was like, okay, how can you argue with, I'm going to have 3 properties, by year 7, like there's nowhere and if I don't, here's where you are. Right where you are right now is exactly where you're going to be.
And people, that's what they need. They need to understand to get the education, get somebody there who can help them, walk them through and create a successful plan. But they also have to be willing to accept that push and go out there and take the next step and say, yes, you know what, this plan sounds, it makes sense. It's sound. Okay, let's get out there and execute, because the getting rid of the fear is also in the doing. Yeah. So you've done all your preparation. You've done all your planning. You've done all your research. Now you have to get out there and you have to also execute. So that's what we're trying to do. And the funny thing is, this is really what led me down to pre-construction, because the pre-construction allows you to plan and forecast.
Yep.
So it's not like something where you're, okay, I'm buying a resale property, I'm closing in 90 days.
Yep.
The pre-construction condominium purchase allows people to plan 2 to 3 years in advance.
Yep.
It allows them to get their foot in the door. They have, they put down money on a property. So the second that you put down money on a property, even if you haven't closed, you in your mind are a property owner.
Yeah.
So it's going to shift your energy. You're going to think differently. You're going to go from being on one side of the ledger, which is the people who are renting and don't have any investment, right away to being a person who owns property.
And then you're going to start seeing all the different opportunities that you start attracting, and you're going to start taking notice. You're going to start noticing the prices of other properties.
Absolutely.
You're going to start looking at, okay, oh, look, this one just sold next door. That means mine's probably up this much. You start giving a lot more attention and positive energy. And that's where that whole fear-based thinking and just sitting and getting stuck in that, it leaves you in a place where you can't create from that space. You've got to move that energy over into something that's, enriching and motivating. And that's where you start seeing the shift in people and their mindset, because now, like you said, you went from not owning and not, getting activated, and now you're in the mix. And so you're there, you are in it, and now you're going to start now looking at, okay, well, what's next? And I've had people, they just left their second deposit. They still got, one more deposit left in another year and a half. Well, what can I grab something else now?
What's next?
Or maybe I can flip this out on an assignment. And they come with a completely different energy, and you're just like, look at you now. But you have to light that fire.
So you just bought a new Tesla, right? Yes. You got a new Tesla. And I'm sure that as soon as you got the Tesla, all you did was see on the road was a bunch of Teslas.
Of course.
All you saw.
Yep,
Again, it's the mindset. Yep. So as soon as you go in and you break that fear and you put that investment down, all you start seeing are investments and opportunities and breaking them down. And this is the way the world works. It's an actual psychology behind it. So that's why I'm saying buying that property and putting that money down is such a great first step. When you were talking about baby steps, the pre-construction is a perfect step, because you bought something, but it's not really closed, but already your mind, already the energy, everything shifts in that positive direction. Already you're talking about buying another property. You haven't even closed this one. But everything in your sphere changes.
And for anyone who's got any issues with credit, they got to clean some stuff up. That is going to be your motivation to get that done, because now you've got like a goalpost. And so I had people who put money down and they didn't have good credit. They had to do their pre-approval with like some super numbers on the page, or get a co-signer for the pre-approval.
Or a B-lender or something, right?
Yeah, but it's okay, because you know what? They've got 2 years to clean up their credit, and we would, again, pull your Equifax report, pull up your TransUnion, clean it up, start paying stuff down, and that is, again, another motivating factor, because now you're in the mix. You're like, oh, I'm an investor now. I got to get everything
I'm an investor, because you put down 20 grand on something. Now you become, no, but it changes who you are. It changes who you are. Like before you were a renter, and now you put down 20 grand, whether you borrowed it, whatever you had to do, you use a line of credit, you put down this money. Now all of a sudden you're an investor, and it changes how you feel, and it changes how you look at yourself. So your reflection changes, and that is what's going to start changing your habits. But first of all, you have to take, this small step, and you have to get going. So that's why I love the pre-con. And like you said, it gives you a chance to actually put your credit together, because I wonder where those people would be. And I mean, we don't need to do a longitudinal study, because we've seen it. Between me and you, collectively, we've been in real estate over 35, 40 years. We've seen it. You have the people who bought pre-construction. They have a goal. They know they have to close. They have a destination, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go get this. And you have the other people who are like, oh, I'll call you when I'm ready. No, I'm going to work on the side over here. Don't worry. I know that we said we're going to buy another property like 2 years. I'll call you, and you never get the call.
Never, ever get the call. I've even had people, wanting to invest with me on like some of my projects early on. And it was the same thing. Yeah, I'm ready. And then boom.
They're not ready.
Don't pick up the phone. Now
they're dodging a call.
But where are they? Exactly where I left them.
But and that's like, the fear, like we said, that should be scaring people. Is the fear of being sedentary, the fear of staying where you are, the fear of being non-progressive, not teaching your kinfolk, your children, everybody in your circle, how to be progressive, because this thing permeates through everything. So if I'm fearful, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm in the house, I'm afraid, I hear a noise. Everybody hears a noise. Everybody's afraid. But by the same token, when you are brave, when you are fearless, that's gonna permeate through your environment. So be understanding this is not just about you. Like this is not about me. It's not about you. This podcast is not for us. We don't need to go on air to talk to people to show them how to make money. We're making money. But this is all about that net effect. Yep. We want to affect change in other people. So people have to do it themselves as well. And they have to understand, listen, how do we overcome the fear? We take certain steps, we plan, we educate ourselves. It's the reducing the fear is also in the doing. And with that, it's going to have a positive change on my environment.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, that is where you got to look. It's not just about you, it's about the larger community. And then, thinking of this now, part of what I used to do was I'd make the 5-year plan for them. And then we start looking at, okay, now if you've got $400,000 net worth in 2-3 years from now, what does that mean for you?
Right.
I had one client whose mom needed some really expensive cancer medication. And, and at some point when he started getting into real estate investment, he had the money that he was able to help her, and then we had somebody else who wanted to send their child to school, same thing for university. I mean, and now they're in a position to help. And then we've got other people who just have, much larger aspirations around even just like, I had someone going down to Ethiopia looking at building schools. And so again, you need to get yourself in a position to be able to help everybody around you. And you've got to move through the fear to do that.
So all these examples are people who were fearful at first. They weren't there. You went, you talked to them, you became their real estate psychologist. You walked them through it and you're like, hey, this is what we know. But listen, selling real estate, that is part of the job. Yeah. It's a psychology job.
Get very intimate with their financials, the credit, the family members.
I'm a therapist. I know people better than their husbands and wives. Know people I met. Listen, I had like old Jamaican parents and they're like, yo, don't bring my kids to this meeting because they didn't want them to know about their personal finances. And I'm like, okay, like how is this going to help the situation, right? But they were like, don't bring them. So I know more about that family and the inner workings and the finances than even the kids. They'll come ask me, oh, how much money does Nana have? And I'm like, I'm not at liberty. Like we can't even discuss.
An NDA.
We can't. Yeah, I said Nana made me sign the NDA and she gave me, some banana bread. So, differently, we're good, right? But that's the type of level that we're on with the fear. But now look at this. You've helped cure someone's cancer. You've helped a child to go to school. You've built schools vis-a-vis these other people, but these are doors that you open.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not something that I reflect on often, but here we are.
Well, no, it's a great opportunity because so much, my favorite Zig Ziglar quote, and this is, you help people get what they want, and that's what help you get what you want every time. Now, you don't do it for that reason. You don't do it because you want something, but you just do it because it's the right thing to do. You're like, hey, I'm going to help somebody get in a property. I'm going to help change their whole life. And this ties back into me being a doctor because you know what? Everybody needs financial help. Everybody. I needed financial help at some points in my life. My mom, thank God I had my business partner because he's a lot more frugal than I am. So he was able to help me out, and he understood finances a lot earlier than I did. So he was someone like, Gerard, you can't spend this amount of money, and like he was really on me. But that level of understanding has obviously trickled through the partnership, and it's helped me evolve into the person I am. But being able to help people financially, like I'm actually saving lives out here.
Yeah, it's I mean, dare I say, as valuable as the medical field when you really look at how you're able to affect mindset and how that trickles down to other generations and through just the community as a whole. And it's something that, again, like I don't reflect on it often, but I really think that this is something that people getting into this field, it's one of those sort of like an offside benefit.
Yeah, of course.
Silver lining that you didn't really think of, and how satisfying it can really be. I mean, I'm just thinking back to a family that later on they got in their first project, they renovated the basement, and then they went on to buy like 6 or 7
and they just kept
cottages. And then they they're making, I think she said she's doing like $300,000 a year.
And this
off
is
of
all
these cottages,
from
but it started from that first one where I was like, yo, we can take this basement and you can convert it into a rental property downstairs went through the whole process, the renovation process, and then they were just off. They realized they loved it.
And they just kept going. But you have two different, you have two completely different schools. You have a fork in the road. You have some people going left and they're like, hey, Priscilla, I'll see you a little bit later. And they let that fear control them. And then you have people who went to the right and they said, hey, you know what? I am scared. Like, this is your financial health. Being scared to me is natural. Being fearful of things is a natural response to saving yourself. Like, this is what it is. But you also have to understand the psychology about it and be like, hey, even if something happens, I have a backup plan. I have a safety net. I have a village. I have a community. These other things that you still have to rely on. It doesn't mean don't do it, but it means do it smartly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's where it's like, you're not just taking some random risk. You're not just jumping off a mountain. You're taking calculated risk and understanding that you always want to have an exit strategy no matter what. And in anything, buying pre-construction, part of your exit strategy is making sure you have an assignment clause in the agreement. You know, part of your exit strategy, if the market starts falling, is you don't want to buy the penthouse, you know, buy an accessible unit, you know, that's at a price point that any given market it's gonna sell. I used to like the super tiny 2 bedrooms.
They're the best still. The super tiny 2 bedrooms. Nothing's changed. The super tiny 2 bedrooms
a little bit more
still
income,
lives
a
on.
little bit more cash flow, but still an affordable price point. But these are the things. But again, unless you take that first step to get in it, you're never going to discover that this is a very calculated, dare I say, safe investment.
No,
real estate is the safest investment to me.
It's very safe. Yeah. It's very safe, but it still comes with some risk. Now, have you seen, like, I watch the Disney Channel. Have you seen Free Solo?
I have not.
This is a guy.
I barely watch TV.
You don't watch TV. Now, I only watch educational programs. So I'm listening to podcasts, other podcasts. I'm ebooks. I had this love-hate relationship with the ebook because I was like, oh, I want to read it because obviously the medium is the message. Yeah. So it's like, oh, I want to read it. But then I was like, okay, this ebook is not a substitute for me reading. This is a substitute for me listening to music. So now I was like, I'm getting more and not less. That doesn't mean like do less reading. Still means I'm going to read before bed or whatever. But the Free Solo is a guy who's like climbing like these mountains like El Capitan. He was climbing mountains with no ropes. That was it. Like he was going up these mountains like a mile, kilometer up, no ropes. It was just like the craziest thing. It's called Free Solo. It's like this guy and he's still alive. He's cool. Wow. And a lot of people are doing this, but he was saying like that's how he got rid of the fear. He started small. And he also said the more you do something, the more comfortable you become, the less fearful that you become of those outcomes. Because he's like, yeah, I'm afraid to die. No, you literally had to ask yourself during this show, is this guy not afraid to die? No, because he's climbing a mountain with like, he's got these little tiny shoes on. He's got some chalk on his hands and that's it. So the whole time.
Not even the
No, definitely not the that thing is done, right? No ropes, I said, no nothing. So the whole, I don't even know if he had spikes on his shoe or just like something, but it was crazy. But the whole time that he's doing it, like maybe it's an hour and a half episode and your hands are just moist. Because like, I don't know how this Disney movie, like, is this going to be a Disney tragedy? Is it going to be a Bambi where the mom dies? I hope I didn't spoil it for anybody. Or is this going to be like, how is this going to end? But the guy was, he was good. Like, but the whole thing about how he moved through the fear, but that's why I'm telling you, it's not, being afraid doesn't mean you're not scared of anything, or having fear doesn't mean you're not scared. And no, what it means is you have a fear, working through it. That's being brave. Going on a roller coaster when you don't feel anything in the pit of your stomach isn't brave. Like anybody can do that. It's the people who go on the roller coaster, they know they're going to feel it, but they're like, okay, let me prepare for it. Yeah. So like my nephew, he's like, oh, I go on these roller coasters and he'll just sit there on the roller coaster like this because he doesn't feel it. But there's no beauty in that to me. Yeah. Because you're not even scared anyway. The whole
there's no growth,
thing is
right?
thrill.
Yeah. There's no growth because what you want to do is it's like you said, you want to feel the fear and do it anyway, and that's where you're actually evolving. And that's where you're gonna, making an imprint even just mentally on your subconscious that like this is something I can do, and then if I can do this, then I can do this, and I can do this, and then that's when you get going.
Oh my God. What you just talked about there is, I think that's the key to everything. Because now when you move through that fear, whatever that first phase is, then you can start unlocking some of the other levels. Yeah. You cannot get to the next level if you can't unlock the first one. Yeah. So you have to unlock this first thing. Okay, I got rid of this. I dealt with this. This is to the side. And then when you get to the next step, you're like, hey, I remember that last time I had that fear, and this is what I did, and these are the steps I took to accomplish it, and this is what I did to move through it, to dip my toe into the water and then evolve. And then it makes the process easier. And then next thing you know, you're running. Boom. Now you have that person who has 6 or 7 properties who you had to convince to put a basement apartment in.
Absolutely. And that's where ideally anyone who's stuck in fear has just got to move, and you have to take that first step. And there's just no other way. And really, again, understanding, and some people are visual learners and map it out, you know, here's what I'm doing now, here's where I'm going to be in 3 years. And if I do something different, I'm going to get a different outcome. And I mean, that's just, are you living by choice, or are you living by, you know, getting locked into what you're afraid of? And that is everything, but mapping it out and looking at where you're going to be in 5 years from now. And I think that's what makes a lot of people upset, is because they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy real estate now because I saw the prices 5 years ago and I didn't do it then. So like, why am I going to buy now?
I honestly, that's a logic I can't understand. It's like, I was going to do this 5 years ago. I didn't. I missed the boat. So then they say, you know what? I'm going to wait till the market comes back to that point. Like, not to say that it ever will, but they come up with this story in their mind. But I don't really think that's real. I think the reality is they know it's not real.
Well, they regret that they didn't take a move, and it's almost like you just want to punish yourself now. Like, I didn't do it. You're saying you want to get
punished.
Yeah, I didn't do it. So now I'm upset that I didn't take that chance.
So I punish myself for life?
Yeah, and I'm just not going to do it. And sometimes it's protests. Like, I've had people who I was going to sell them a property. Maybe the property was $400,000, and then a year later, I'm like, hey, you know, the property's up to $500K now. Like, you should, you know, let's
do something at 5.
Do something, yeah, or pick another project, whatever. Oh no, I already missed out. And then, you know, two I hear that they went and bought something with another agent, and I was just like, oh, so it was just me.
No, but it wasn't. No, but it wasn't just you. No, this is what I'll tell you right there. It wasn't just you, but you were a reminder of the fear.
Yes, and so a reminder of what they didn't become.
Exactly. So you were a reminder of the fear that they had, and now if they're going by with you, the whole time they're going to be thinking about this opportunity that I missed out on. It's like, yo, let me just have a clean break. But I still think that's a win. Because at the end of the day, for people like me, people like you, it's not just, okay, we want to make a rip, we want to make the commission. We want to put people in the market for them to make money. So whether they bought with you or not, they bought, I still think it's a happy ending.
For sure. And I'm glad to have been, you know, some part of that process as a catalyst.
Now, I have some people who never bought with me, and they were my biggest referral source.
Yeah.
Because of the fear and the regret that happened to them, they became my biggest advocate. Yeah. So what happened? I had some people that were going to buy. They didn't buy. They missed out. Market went up, but we stayed in touch. Oh man, Sherrard, I saw that. I could be up 200 grand. I could be up this. Now they send me a client. Yeah. They send me another client. Yeah. They send me another client. And they keep telling these guys, oh, you got to buy with Sherrard because of this thing that I missed out on, right?
Yeah, and I've had that many a time too. And I mean, I even had people who, they bought, oh boy, there was 2 people who bought. Then what do? They messed up their credit between the time that they signed the pre-construction. So instead of going in the right direction,
they went the other way.
They went the
other way. Which could happen.
Old habits, and who knows if there was some sort of subconscious thing going on there. But yeah, by the time they went to get the mortgage, everything was in the toilet, and they ended up at some B lender. 5-6%, which back then
because it was like
the
1%
interest rate it is now. Yeah, and so and then what ended up happening? One bad decision led to another. Then they got the property. It was negative cash flow. Within a year, I want to sell.
Oh my gosh.
Well, this is not the best time to sell. Hold on a little bit longer. This is happening in the neighborhood. This, that. No. I want to sell. They sell. What happens? 2 years later, it's up 200 grand. And they sold and broke even because of all the interest costs that they had.
How many times have I heard that story? It's a horror story, but I've heard it so many times because again, even though, and that's the thing about fear, you have to control it throughout the entire process. It's not like, okay, I'm afraid of flying. Let me just control it until I get on the plane and then I can let myself go. No, because I'll be freaking out in the middle of the air. I still have to control it. So what happened is they controlled their fear. They got the property, and then everything else though was still tugging in the back of their mind. So they went back to old habits because the new habits they weren't comfortable with. So that was an uncomfortable place for them. So they went back to old habits. And then they were in negative cash flow. And even though you gave them some advice, now the fear in the back of their mind, oh, I'm never going to make money. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to go bankrupt. And so that fear still encapsulated them. Yep. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. It undermined everything positive step they did make. And then boom, they're right back to the beginning.
Right back to where they were. And so, and then to add to that, they just never bought anything again.
Oh, ever. Of course not. You didn't have to tell me how that story ended, because and that's the best thing is like, I had one rocky flight. Oh, I'm never going to fly again. Now, if I told someone that I had a bad flight, there was turbulence, I'm never going to fly again, people would be like, oh man, this guy's crazy. Yeah. Like, what's wrong with him? I don't know. You can't say crazy, but this guy has a mental health issue. He's got some problem. Okay. That's what they're going to say. But when you're in the moment, you're like, oh no, but I had turbulence that time. Like, so what happens in life when there's turbulence? You don't just stop living. No. You don't just say, well, you know what? I'm never going to buy another investment, or I'm never going to invest ever again. What you say is, okay, well, I'm going to invest smarter. Here is the mistakes that I made during that time, and this is what I'm going to do differently. Self-reflection. And I think there's just not enough of that. Oh man. And the people that stay exactly where they are, it's that they don't take a moment to reflect, hold themselves accountable for where things went awry, and then make different choices. Well, that's the whole thing that we're talking about with the mentality, with the fear. It is a process of self-reflection. It's seeing, okay, where you went wrong, what made you fearful in that thing? Because even if we're talking about finances, okay, what is your fear of losing your house? Of being ridiculed by people, of not thinking you're smart enough or you're good enough? Like, what's the fear? Yeah, I had one guy who ended up telling me that he's afraid to actually succeed because everyone else in his family is broke. So now most people would be like, oh, it's just a fear because he doesn't want to lose his money, right? But now when you get down into the psychology of fear, you understand that there is so many different levels to this. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all. So everybody has to have a different approach. But now you got a guy who said, hey, I don't want to be the only one who's successful. Everybody's going to look for me. Maybe they're going to have their hand out, or they're going to be jealous of me. They're going to give me the evil eye, or whatever it is. Yeah, and the real truth is that if you are successful, then you can know how to elevate them. And that's just the side that he's not looking at, right? But you have to elevate their mind. And the question is, are those people ready for growth? Listen, people come to me all the time, and I love all my friends. I have friends for like 30 years. But people want to judge me by what they're doing. And they're like, oh, but Sherrod, like, you're up here and your friends are, I can't make my friends be anything that they don't want to be. Yeah. They can tell me, they will tell me, the Sherrod, listen, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this. But I keep telling people those goals and dreams are action words. It's not just, you can't just say it and click your heels 3 times. You have to do it. You have to be it. Yeah. You have to be that person. Ready for that. And some people switch and will, come up and be ready, and some just never ever will. No, they'll stay in the same place. You gotta be okay with that. And I mean, it's something that's hard. I mean, we talk about this a lot. It's just when you see potential for somebody that they don't see for themselves, and it can be grinding and just taxing. But but you also have to just accept that everyone's in they're making their choices for what suits them, and that has to be their thing. So it's a fear for some people to actually being different. Yeah. Right? Like, they want to be the same. This is something comfortable. Like, same people, they're in the same house, they're doing the same things. There's a level of comfort in mediocrity, in just existing. Yep. People don't want, I know a guy, he worked at a company, he said, oh, if you move up, you move out. So like, he didn't want to get a promotion. He was like, you know what? I don't, because he always thinks like, okay, I'm middle management, but the guys at the top, they're going to be the ones get fired first. They're the ones who make What's really crazy, I mean, I used to experience this when I was helping people stage and declutter their home, getting ready for the market. And again, just going back to like, real estate is really a career in psychology. Oh yeah. Is because, once they start clearing out all the junk, and you see these people walk in and they see their house staged, and first of all, they're like, why wasn't I living this way the whole time? First of all, they don't, and the second of all, they don't want to sell. They don't want to sell. They're like, oh my God, you came and did all this work, I want to stay. But I had one lady who looked at me, she goes, I realized now I wasn't living, I was just existing. And I was like, yeah, that's deep. Because she was just living in a house like hoarders. There's just junk everywhere. And then she actually got to see her home. And then of course it looks its best right before you let it go. You got it there. You made it look its best. And the next thing it's like, hey, you know what? I don't even want to let this go. But you put in all that work. But the fact is, those people were able to overcome the fear, like in Hoarders, because that's another show. Like, I know you say don't watch TV, but anything I watch on TV is something like that. I mean, it's not actually TV; it's like on demand, okay? But because I hate commercials, but that's one of the things I watch, and the psychology behind that, and the fear of these people letting go. So some people just have that fear of letting go. So there's so many different modalities of fear, but we have to really, everybody to move forward, they have to understand, okay, what is their modality of fear? What is it about this that's bothering them? So my fear for flying is a locus of control and being in enclosed spaces, not heights. So some people might say, I'm afraid to fly because I don't want to be up high. Being up that high, to me, when you're up that high, you don't even know you're up that high because you don't have any perception. You went through the clouds. You have no clue. The ground looks beautiful. The view is nice, but it's not that. I don't like not being in control. So then I have to ask myself, like, even if I was in control of this plane, like, how would it be even different? And the plane is flying itself right now. Again, so I needed to work through some of those things for myself to be able to move through it. So people who want to move through this fear, if they're watching the podcast, they have to understand, really get to the underpinnings of why they are afraid to be successful, whether it's in real estate or whatever, but in finance, and know that if you're not successful in this, you are going to be limiting yourself in life.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also a thing too, where what are you afraid of? But one exercise that helped me out when I was looking at going from real estate agent to developer was like, okay, what's my exit strategy? So if this doesn't work out, what's my plan? And backup number one was, okay, you know, I had some other properties that I could, you know, rely on for income. Option number two was then, if this didn't work out long term, well, I would go back to selling real estate.
You always have that skill.
Which was fine. It would have been fine. And so that's what helped me kind of move through the fear, was just mapping out, okay, if this doesn't work. And I think it's that you ask yourself 7 questions, and if that doesn't work, then what, then what, then what? And usually you end up with, like, this is not a problem at all. And so that's just something that you've just got to really look at what your exit plan is. And that will also help you look, at the end of the day, if this doesn't work, I can be still where I am here, and it's totally fine. And I still have a way to provide for myself, etc.
And when you have that, I think it's beautiful. But see, with me with the flying, what was my exit strategy? No, what is your exit? You're on a plane, 40,000 square feet in the air. You can't even, the guy told me you can't even open the door. All this stuff, when you see these movies and they're opening the door
to jump out,
he's like, you can't even get the door open because there's so much pressure. Like, everybody's gonna blow. So that's what I actually had to, for me, go, because that is actually exactly what you said, is normally how I deal with life. I'm like, okay, I look at every angle. What's my exit? How can I get out of here? If everything implodes, how do I escape? And that gives me solace. But I couldn't have an exit strategy. So on a plane, I was at 40,000 square feet. So I had to just make myself very quiet and meditate and say, you know what? I'm going to have to be in this space, and I had to choose that space. So instead of me saying, okay, I'm going to have to exit, I said, well, there's no reason to exit. We're safe up here. I understood all the numbers and the math and how it's safer than like walking. You know what I'm saying? No, it's safer than walking, it's safer than driving, it's safer than riding a bike. So I went through all the different machinations, and then I chose to be in that space because I couldn't come up with an exit. There was no exit for me. But the point being is, no matter what situation you're in when it comes to fear, you always have options on how to attack it and how to undermine that fear, how to make it dissipate so you can move on and get to the next level.
And that's the guide to real estate investing on a mental level, and it's the guide for everything in life.
But but real estate investing is literally a mental game. So that's what people don't understand, because they buy a property, it goes down in value. What happens? They get afraid. I'm going to lose everything. But this is the different from stocks. Shout out to Master Investor. We love you. But this one's different because we're not going to get a margin call. Real estate can't go down to zero. Real estate has tangible value. So this is where I'm saying, where if you're afraid of investing, real estate is a great place to start, because you're not going to lose everything if you just maintain.
And oftentimes, I mean, you could even take one property and there's different ways to monetize it too, right? Like, as we see now with, you know, Airbnb and everything else. But more than that, though, is that you haven't actually, if the value of the property goes down, you haven't lost money unless you're selling it at that moment.
Unless you crystallize the loss or gain.
Paying off the bank, and you end up with less money. Like, you know, that's how you lose money in real estate. But again, before you start,
in real estate, before you have money, and this is why I think being on TikTok, being on some of these other channels where we can start talking to our younger audience. Me and you are going to be speaking at 2 or 3 schools this month to like teenagers, and they're not even buying real estate yet. But before they buy real estate, we have to prime them.
Yeah.
We have to prep them.
Yeah.
We have to say, okay, these are the fears. This is the resistance that you're going to come into. Yeah. We know this is going to happen for sure. Your parents are going to say something. Your friends are going to say something. The people on IG are going to tell you, oh, you know, buy an NFT, buy crypto, buy stocks, buy something. So people there's going to be white noise. The bank
is going to tell you don't qualify.
The bank is going to tell you.
You don't have capital to buy.
Financial advisor who doesn't own anything. And he's going to tell you, don't buy real estate. Give me the money. Let's invest in the bank and give you 4% on the mutual funds. And then you have management fees and inflation. You're going to lose 3% a year. And this is how you're going to make it. But we're trying to demystify that. And when you demystify it and you give them information, eradicate the fear, put them in a position to win. And that's what this whole podcast is about. It's about a mentality. It's about a mind shift. So you know what? You're going to go on a lot of different podcasts. And they're going to tell you, and we hear a lot of these stories, do this, buy a LLC, put the money in the LLC, and then if you do that and you go to the bank, you get a $75,000 platinum Visa card from Amex, and then a Visa from Amex, you know, and then you get...
But before you do any of that, condition your mind, prep yourself, let's start working on the fears that you have. And that's going to be your best primer for moving forward.
Right. Before you do anything, before you get the LLC, before you buy the 6,000 pound vehicle and get your 100% write off for the first day, before you don't pay tax in your primary residence, before you do anything out here, your mind has to be right. Your mind has to be ready, or you can't make money. Or if you do, you can't keep it. This is the Real Estate of Mind podcast, episode 4. I'm Sherrod McQueen, CEO of M5V Developments, the #1 developer on social media in Canada. And this is
Priscilla Facey, founder, CEO of Build Up Development Co.
And the main event.
The main event.
And the main event. Thank you.